Hello, human peoples. You're listening to the podcast network of Gamefully Unemployed. To support us and gain access to great exclusive podcasts like Fox Mulder is a Maniac, Tom and Jeff Watch Batman, Star Trek The Next Futurama, and our latest show, Spiel Boys, head over to patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. We do game streaming, movie nights with our patrons every Friday night, and you can even commission your own podcast about anything you want. Literally anything, within reason, and we have to do it. You are quite frankly out of excuses not to go visit patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. That's patreon.com/GAMEFULLY unemployed, which is spelled like it sounds. Can't go out here with dry, dusty whistles.
Exactly. Mummy whistles.
Yeah, exactly. Crypt whistles.
Hi, everybody.
Hello, everyone.
My name is David Bell.
My name isn't. It's Tom Ryman.
And we just watched The Pyramid.
The Pyramid.
2014's The Pyramid. Feels older, but it isn't.
It feels older. It feels roughly 500 years old.
It has been called the Curse of the Pharaohs. Vengeance against adventurers who disturbed the sacred tombs of the pyramids. 1699. A Polish ship carrying two mummies is haunted by spectral visions and brutal storms. 1803. 4 expedition members enter Khafra's pyramid, never to emerge. 1922. Tutankhamun's tomb is opened, and a series of horrifying deaths befall the excavation team. For the next 91 years, no other tombs are disturbed.
Tell them not to open it up yet. Tell them to hold off.
Until now.
It feels older than the pyramids themselves.
Real quick, big shout out to Burrito Mouth. Burrito Mouth is our patron who's making us watch shape-themed movies.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've run out of,
run out of
circles.
cubes.
Or cubes, and then we went on to spheres. We might have some circles left, but we're at a pyramid.
It is a geometric shape, that's true.
Yeah, this is a 2014 very, very unsuccessful, to the point that they didn't release it in a lot of countries on DVD.
Yeah.
I learned. So it's available on Amazon, though.
I think it even skipped theatrical releases in a lot of places.
I can see that. Yeah, this is a breathtakingly bad movie.
This is one of the worst movies I think we've ever watched on this podcast.
All right, well, it's hard because I wasn't bored because it's all right. Yeah, it's not so bad that it's funny, but it's fascinating to watch at times.
Yeah, it is. It's one of those. It's like the Master of Disguise. It's not as entertaining or as singular or as, dare I say, essential as the Master of Disguise.
Yeah.
Which we didn't even watch on this, but we watched that on Best Bad Movie. But anyway, it's one of those movies where it's fascinating and interesting and almost like a classroom situation to watch it, just as an example of how wrong every element of your movie can go.
Yeah, I want to give, not a history lesson, but I want to say that this was an era where found footage horror was on its decline, I would say.
Yeah, the Paranormal's activity were winding down because even they were starting to break the format. And they were getting, they were never good, but they were getting real bad.
No. We've reached a new era now where found footage can actually be quite good, but this specific era, found footage in a horror meant that's a bad movie.
Yes.
Like, more often than not, that was going to be bad. It basically meant we want to make a horror film, but we don't want to pay a lot of money, so let's just make it found footage.
Well,
and they would often...
real quick, it's that we want to make a horror movie, but we want to pay even less money. Because the thing about horror movies, why they get made so often, is because they're relatively cheap to make, and they tend to be very successful because of how little money you spend on them. And just people enjoy watching shitty horror movies, so they'll be like, hey, the fucking clown penis killer, let's watch that. That'll be stupid. And then you've just given them $5.
Yeah, exactly. And so they wanted to pay, like, the first Paranormal Activity is shot in the producer's house.
The first
I think it didn't even break, like, $100,000 for the budget.
No.
It was, like, ridiculously cheap.
Yeah, the first 2 Paranormal Activities were shot in the same house, which is the producer's house. So, so they got 2 whole movies out of that.
Yeah, Blair Witch, famously $30,000, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's this appeal to it. The problem is that, like, there are actually certain things you need to do to make a good found footage horror movie.
Yeah.
And I wrote a list of bad things, because what would happen is that they didn't actually have respect for the genre, and so they were just making it to make it. And then we get all the way to this movie, which I believe is like the rock bottom of found footage, where I don't even think this movie was cheap. I think this movie actually was expensive.
It can't have been. I mean, they clearly only have maybe 2 sets. Like it's an old trick. The Raid does the same thing. They just keep dressing the same room in different ways, and it's the pyramid.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
that's fine. That's not a knock against the movie. But you're right. It doesn't look cheap.
Yeah, and again, it's probably not incredibly expensive either.
No, but all of it's a creature movie, and all of the creatures are digital effects.
Yeah. And so it undercuts everything about both found footage and horror.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what's so fascinating by it, is that it almost feels like they purposefully made it to fail.
Which is because that obviously can't be the intent, but
right.
Like, it's so, the thing I want to scream about with my entire chest is that it's not even a found footage movie. It is sometimes, and then it will just randomly not be when it decides not to be.
It literally cuts to space. In the first 15 minutes, there's a cutaway to space. A satellite in space.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the issue. There's a scene in this movie where the rover goes into the tent, right?
Yeah.
And sees the woman undressing. And this is a PG-13 movie, right? It's got to be.
No, it's R.
Really?
Yeah, they were swearing all over the place. It's pretty violent.
Yeah, you're right. Okay, that actually makes this even worse. And I know this is a terrible, terrible example, but so if you're going to show boobs in your movie, show them. But they do the, like, PG-13 thing, right? This is such a weird analogy.
I don't know what you're doing, yeah.
What I'm saying is that they were like, ooh, we want to show a sexy moment. We want to appeal to that, right? So they showed, like, the back of this actress changing, and the scene is completely unnecessary, right?
It really isn't.
And then
you could maybe argue the person driving the rover is supposed to have a romantic relationship with that character, but
it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter, and we only learn about it from that and from, like, a photograph we see of them together, and that's it.
Yeah, it feels like a producer was like, let's show some skin, and the actress was like, absolutely not.
Yeah, no.
And they talked her
so this was their
and they
compromise.
talked her into showing her back.
Yeah.
And so I guess what I'm getting at is that's how this whole film feels, where it's, if you're going to do a found footage film,
do a found footage film.
Yes. If you're not, don't. The problem with doing both is it actually undercuts everything, because they use the same style of shooting and camera quality for both the found footage shots and the non-found footage shots.
Mm-hmm.
So what that does is, for example, they put a rover in the pyramid, and because they're like, no one can go inside, and then they keep shooting third-person shots of the rover.
They keep shooting, like, establishing shots of the rover as it's...
Yeah. But it's shot handheld, like he found footage. So I'm like, well, like, you brought that cameraman in there, right?
It's like it drives into this tunnel, and it's like supposed to be this spooky thing as it's driving in there, and we're seeing from the rover's camera, and then it immediately cuts to a reverse shot of the rover driving into the tunnel. It's like, what the fuck are we doing?
Yeah. And again,
who's holding that camera? Oh, nobody? Okay.
Yeah.
Like, it even begins with the stupid prologue that they all begin with, where it's like, this was the footage that was recovered from this team. And it's like, but it's not, unless there was an additional person there that, like a ghost that was filming it for their Instagram or something.
What makes it even weirder is that none of those shots, the third person non-found footage shots, are necessary for the plot. Going to that shot of space. So they do a scene where they're talking, and then they cut to space and a satellite, and then they cut to them at a computer looking at the satellite. You don't need to show the satellite in space for us to understand that there's a satellite.
Mm-hmm.
And most of it, most of it undercuts it. Imagine that rover scene had it all just been from the rover's perspective. That actually would have been scarier.
Imagine this entire movie if it had only been from the perspective of the cameras that this crew is holding, but they don't do that. They cut to an omniscient camera in every sequence.
And the problem is that, so by doing that, the tension of a found footage film is that you're seeing it all through their perspective,
that is the entire point of the format. It's why it's interesting for people, because it puts you right in the action, so it's like you're there. It's why people like it. It's why it's appealing.
Right. And also, it makes it feel real.
Yeah, it's why it's good for horror. It's what makes it scary.
Now, the tension of a movie that's not a horror movie, that's not found footage, involves you having to forget it's a movie, right? Mm-hmm. You become involved with the plot. You forget the camera exists. But by doing both, it ruins both.
Yeah.
In the third person views, you're always thinking, well, there's
who's
a cameraman
holding the camera? Yeah.
Exactly. So it ruins both ideas simultaneously,
it sure does.
Which is very impressive.
Dave, would you believe that this is this director's first and only movie?
I would. This movie, it's incredible.
It's this director, I don't remember his name off the top of my head, but he's, I think, a writer and cinematographer. He's worked a lot with Alexander Aja, who is a producer on this film, but like,
got it.
Even Aja's worst movie is not as bad as this.
Yeah,
and I actually kind of like him. I like most of his movies. But
so
this movie is trash.
I was looking at the behind the scenes, and this is a spoiler. One of the IMDb trivia is Anubis is entirely computer generated.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, you don't say.
It's how interesting. Because let me tell you, it looked real.
I completely misremembered this movie, by the way. As I knew Anubis was in it. I knew it was found footage. I had seen it. But I thought that it was way more subtle. The Anubis stuff. No, you see it in the light.
It is, yeah. It is. You see him in the daytime. It is literally Anubis.
Yeah. The other villain is, and we'll get into the actual plot. The thing is,
the other villain is
terrible.
Cats.
It's Cats.
The other
Sphinx Cats.
The primary villain, I would even say, because you don't get to Anubis until the end. The primary villain of this film is Cats.
Yeah, most of the movie is just people lost in a pyramid. One of them gets in a Mortal Kombat trap, and then they get attacked by cats every now and then. Mm-hmm. But like the cats can't; they're just hungry kitties. And they're like, these are Sphinx cats. They must have been buried down here thousands of years ago, right?
Yeah,
that's what they say.
Mm-hmm.
Tom, go ahead and guess when Sphinx cats were first bred.
I'm gonna guess it was later than 3,000 years ago when the pyramids were built.
It was 1960.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, that's the level of not giving a shit this movie is. Like, they didn't Google anything.
Well, they Googled Sphinx and saw that they were Sphinx cats. And they were like, oh, that must be what the Sphinx was. And it's like, no, that's not what that was.
No, they were just cats that name that way. Yeah, exactly. Way to be racist about it. I love that they're excavation. Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
I love that it's like a 1930s. Like they're using shovels, and like I don't know how you dig up a pyramid nowadays, but I feel like you don't do it like you do in the movie The Mummy.
Well, I feel like you probably would because it's a delicate operation. Like it's the reason they don't use backhoes to dig up dinosaur bones.
Yeah, that's fair. But like I don't know, it doesn't matter. Because I don't think it mattered to them. I mean, they do a thing where they
once you get to a certain level, anyway. Like obviously, you would clear away the first. I don't know.
But yeah, you wouldn't. Yeah, exactly. But like later, they like find an artifact and the guy dusts it off, and then the woman just picks it up.
Yep.
It's like, okay, so which is it?
Mm-hmm.
And he dusts it off in such a half-assed way where they just know that's something you do. Like again, there's like no research is I guess what I'm getting at here. There's no attention to those details. And again, it's like they don't care to be found footage. It feels like they thought found footage is a golden ticket, is like free money, and then they just threw it together.
It's not a bad idea, like to do a found footage movie that's inside a haunted pyramid. Sure, I'll buy a ticket to that.
Yeah.
But this movie sucks so profoundly.
They didn't do anything. It just really feels like they didn't try. The scenes that are supposed to be horror aren't scary. They put action music over half of the scenes. They don't try. Yeah, they try for a few very cheap jump scares.
That's one of the other things. Is it has a non-diegetic score.
Yes, it has music.
That's correct, right? Non-diegetic is when they can't hear it.
I think so.
Okay.
Yes,
that's right. It's like play. There's a score that'll play in the actual sequences that are legitimately found footage, and it's like, where is that music coming from?
Yeah. All right. So this was my list of all the things it did wrong. The characters all look like actors. They're beautiful, all of them, which is a common one that I think found footage figured out not to do after a while. And it's like, you don't need hideous people in it. You just need people who look like real people. All the characters are clearly in makeup. They're clearly like camera ready. It's also lit like a movie at all times. They don't try to like
there's several
make it look natural.
There's one thing I want to tack on to that. There's a scene where the last two characters get to Anubis's chamber, and it's behind this secret door. And one of them, the lady, is hiding in the dark as Anubis stomps past her and opens the door to get out, and light comes in. They're in a pyramid under the sand. There's no light source down there.
Exactly.
So it's things like that.
Yeah, obviously the third-person camera, that's like blatant not caring. And a lot of the times it's in exchange for just like doing shots they think is cool. They'll have like a shot from the ceiling suddenly. Like, again, it's shots that it's like, you can just take that out.
Yeah, like a shot. There's one where there's a shot way down. It's like the Rover thing, but it's the characters enter a hallway, a corridor, and it cuts to a reverse angle of all the characters just so we can see one of the cats run in front of the camera.
Yeah, and the like, reverse angle is way down the hallway, and it's like, wait, did you have a cameraman?
Yeah, who's holding that? Yeah, so it's like, not only is that not scary, it's a cat running in front of a camera. Like, at this point, we've seen that it's a cat, so we know it's a cat, so it's ridiculous. So not only is the shot not scary, but also you've just, once again, undermined the entire point, all of the tension of a found footage movie. And I just want to add that footnote onto what I said earlier about the light source. It sounds nitpicky, but like the whole point of a found footage movie is to put you there and to maximize the tension of that situation. And part of the tension of being in a pyramid, I mean, look at the movie The Descent, is the fact that it's pitch black, like you're underground.
Yes. Yeah, and to quote Red Letter Media, you might not have noticed, but your brain did.
Yeah.
It's one of the other things is that they edit this like a horror movie. They have jump scare sounds. They have soundtrack effects. They'll do like wacky, like when that guy gets hit by the boulder, which is fucking hilarious. They like flash a couple shots in there, and it's like, what? I thought this is, again, found footage. And so like by doing that, like a lot, again, it's just so lazy. Whereas if you watch a good found footage movie, they will be able to figure out how to do a jump scare by using the camera, how it moves, and the natural sounds in the environment. And this doesn't care to try to do that, ever. It just does the horror movie jump scare sound and, like, quick cuts or something like that. Like, the person who found the footage and edited it was like, I'm making a horror movie with this.
Yeah.
And so breaking the format isn't a bad idea, I actually thought. It's how you have to do it. Like, imagine if this movie or a movie started as found footage and then at a certain point broke the format. That would, and if that moment meant something, you know, like I could see that.
Yeah, and I think that has been. I feel like that has been.
I'm sure it has
done, but that's not what this movie does. It breaks format constantly within the same scene.
Constantly and without any reason.
Yeah.
You know what it reminds me of, and I know I've referenced this before, is when David Copperfield was like, I can do street magic, and so he just did his stage magic outside. And like that, I always found that very funny.
Environments, yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was very funny. Although in retrospect, it's kind of an observation on the fact that we don't have to get into this, but street magic, the David Blaine stuff, was just kind of staged magic too.
Well, it's all forced perspective. It depends on where the camera was standing. Exactly.
It's actually technically easier magic because you're not doing it in front of an audience. You're doing it for a camera, and you can edit it and change it doesn't matter.
Yep.
But David Copperfield doing that. It just felt hilarious because it was like, yeah, I could do that too.
Yeah.
And then he just like lazily did it. That's what this feels like, where they're like, let's do a found footage. And they like didn't care to understand it. They just were like, yeah, you just have to make some of the shots
it really
look like they were filmed by somebody,
yeah,
I guess.
it really smacks of somebody that doesn't understand the format or the point of the format or the reason for the format.
Just cynically doing it. To the point that, yeah, it doesn't even help with their budget, I don't think. And like,
no, this was probably like maybe a $10 million movie. Maybe not that much, but like maybe like 6 or 7.
Yeah. And like, I think a lot of found footage was done in this cynical way where they were like, yeah, we'll give you a found footage. Here you go. And like, they didn't really care. And this is just all of that combined. On top of that,
it's the hubris of people plundering ancient tombs.
Yeah, it is.
So in a way, it's appropriate.
On top of that, the movie is extremely bad.
It is one of the worst movies, if not the worst film we have ever watched for this podcast.
We haven't even explained the plot. Because I'm guessing most people didn't see this movie. It's a group of archaeologists. They found a new pyramid. Mm-hmm. There's riots happening in Egypt, which I'm sure had to do with something that was happening at the time that I don't remember. Yeah. It's weird that it's in here because it doesn't matter ultimately. None of that matters. There's riots. They get to the site and they have to they find this 3-sided pyramid, and it jizzes out some like mummy curse dust, and it hurts the diggers. There's a woman and her father. Her father finds out that she has like some on her. He touches a button on her work computer, and that button is apparently the open picture of me kissing a guy button.
Yeah, open picture of me smooching drone pilot guy.
Yeah, and so we learn they're in a relationship.
But don't worry, it doesn't matter, as we've said.
Yeah, they spend like 10 minutes on the front end, like giving us exposition that never matters. They put a drone in. They're told the riots are so bad you have to leave.
Yeah.
And I can't stress this enough, never matters. Because they go in the pyramid anyway.
Well,
why not just have them go in the pyramid and then the movie starts?
I guess it was their very lazy attempt to explain why would just a very small ragtag unprepared team just go fucking headlong into a pyramid. That's not how it works. This is like a very careful, delicate, highly supervised, highly managed process. It's their way of trying to shove the characters into what is a pretty extreme action.
That's true.
Yeah.
Because what happens is they send their rover in, and then the rover breaks, and they're like, we have to get that. That's like really expensive.
Yeah, it's like a $3 million rover that NASA loaned them.
Right. And at this point, I was thinking, like, just have that cameraman you have in there get it.
Yeah. Have whoever's holding the camera in there.
Yeah.
Also, I couldn't help but think as they were like, you don't understand. They loaned us this camera. It's $3,000. It's a $3 million rover. They're gonna murder me. And it's like, do you know how many millions of dollars NASA breaks?
Yeah.
Like, it's fine. They'll build another one. They would much rather like seriously, like if you lent an excavation, this rover, and they drove it into a temple and it got lost and destroyed, like I'm sure the people at NASA would much rather just have you come to them and be like, look, we put it into the pyramid and we lost it, it got broken. They would much rather than have a human go in there and risk the same injury to themselves trying to recover a piece of equipment.
It's literally why rovers exist.
It's why they built the rover. Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
If you drive a rover to take measurements at the lip of a volcano and it tumbles over the lip of the volcano, you don't send somebody down there to get the rover back.
Right. It's just the rover doing its job.
It's what it's for.
Yeah. Also, this isn't... They try to make it seem like an expensive rover, but you might be imagining a NASA rover. This is like BattleBots. This is a rover that, I don't know, was built for, I don't know, an indie film.
It looks like a rover that was built from an erector set.
Yeah. But that we have to be told this is really expensive, and I'm like, I don't believe you.
I look at this thing and I wonder, how does this cost $3 million? It's an RC car with a camera on top.
That is it. That's all it is.
Mm-hmm. It's just a bare bones metal chassis with a camera.
Yeah. So these dipshits get in the goddamn. Sorry, I really can't get over the fact that this movie cuts away to space. That is the boldest thing a found footage film
Congo
could ever do.
It fucking cuts to a satellite out of nowhere. I'm like, what is this movie?
Imagine writing a found footage film and write cut to exterior space. Like, what a... anyway, these dipshits go into the pyramid. They touch everything. They don't have any care about the artifacts. They find a bunch of stuff. They can't find their way out because they have like a wire like that leads them back out, and it gets cut.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're talking, and out of do they fall through? They fall through a floor.
Yeah,
right?
The floor collapses beneath them as they're trying to find their way back out.
Yeah, and then they're talking, and one of the characters just gets crushed by a rock out of nowhere.
Yep.
It's extremely funny, followed by an emotional scene where he's like dying, and they're like, you're going to be all right. It's going to be okay. And I'm like, I'm sorry. That was extremely, extremely funny. One of the characters, the documentary producer, I think, climbs up a hole.
Yeah, the documentary host.
Yeah, gets attacked by what is clearly a hairless cat.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the moment you realize, oh, this is the worst X-Files episode.
Yeah, this is. Yeah, as soon as she climbs up that shaft, because there's like some tension. You're like, okay, they're stuck in a pyramid. It's falling. There's traps. Like the traps, honestly, are the scariest part of this movie.
Yeah.
So like you're kind of with the movie, even though like it's dumb at this point. But you're like, okay. But as soon as she climbs up there and pokes her little face in that hole, and you see what is clearly a cat, you're like, oh, this movie is bad.
Yeah, and then they spent a lot of time with her being like, I don't know what it was. What was it? And it's like, it was a cat.
It was a
I
cat.
saw it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's on camera.
Yeah, do you not know what a cat... Yeah. They did record it, you're right.
You recorded it. You can play that back.
Yeah. And so from here on, nothing much happens. The Egyptian army guy that they met earlier shows up at the pyramid, and they're like, how'd you get in here?
That guy is the best actor in the movie.
He is, absolutely.
Like in his one scene, he has 3 scenes, but he has 2 scenes outside and 1 scene in the pyramid. But in the 2 scenes he has outside where he confronts them, and he only ever speaks Egyptian, so we don't really know what he's saying. But he's very intense and intimidating. Like, it's very clear that they're like, oh shit, this could get very serious.
Yeah, he's really good.
He's the best actor in the movie.
Yeah. But he starts shooting into the hole. They get chased in the hole. That's when they put action music over it. And also they're getting chased by cats.
They're getting chased by cats.
So it's action music, and it's like they get out of the hole, and then just a scattering of cats come out, and they don't even attack them. They just keep going.
They just keep running.
And the idea is, they're running from something, and the Egyptian guy, he gets folded like he's Henry Bowers' buddy.
Yeah, like Belch Huggins.
Yeah, like Belch. He gets folded into a hole, which is once again extremely funny. It's like kind of freaky, but it's mostly, I thought, funny. And so there's clearly like a bigger creature, and that's all we know. And then they're just trying to get out again. They're yelling at each other. There's like a lot of dumb drama, but nothing that was set up really.
Yeah, stuff this is a very and then movie. Like, it's just stuff just happens without really any rhyme or reason.
Yeah, they're just sort of yelling at each other, and then the producer falls into the Mortal Kombat spike pit. And then the cats show up and start just munching on her, but that doesn't kill her. What kills her, I would argue, is them when they go to help her, and they half lift her out, and it's like, well, you're committed now, and then they're like, no, put her back down in the spike. They put her back down, and it was like, man, don't do that. Don't do any of that. And so she just goes ahead and dies.
Yeah, she honestly makes the best decision out of anyone.
Yeah, she really does. They find the rover again. They rewire the antenna to send a video to the outside. Which, all right. The dad gives like a monologue instead of just being like, "Help, we're trapped in here, get help."
Yeah, he gives like a whole stupid ass
yeah,
like those and I was about to say like those bad horror movies where they find somebody's journal where they've impossibly written their final moments, a thing that no one does.
Right,
like
it's
nobody,
just like that.
Nobody writes in the Mines of Moria, the drums, they are coming. Like nobody writes that. Like
the
who
castle,
is that for? Yeah,
like
the castle. So I was about to say that, except I just remembered that they literally find a journal that says that in this movie.
Mm-hmm. Yes, they do.
From a Mason, like a Freemason. Like, oh, the Freemasons are. This is the funniest fucking thing. They find a Freemason skeleton and realize that like the Freemasons are the people who initially discovered the temple. I don't know, 200 years ago. And built a tunnel in there. And the Professor Dad, randomly says, "Oh yeah, the Freemasons, they're great excavators." I'm like, they're not like a race. It's not like a bloodline. It's like a club you get to join.
Yeah.
Like, what are you talking about? They're great excavators. They're just dudes who fucking go to the Hunter's Lodge once a month to have meetings.
That's amazing. Yeah, his message, yeah, it's a series of people dying in this pyramid and leaving exposition to the next person who will inevitably die.
Yeah.
The dad says, "Bring guns," the next person who comes, and I was like, "Bring TNT." Like, the problem is you can't get out. Like, bring a drill. Just crack open the top of this pyramid.
Yeah, honestly,
for the love of God.
Like, yeah. It's the time for preserving antiquity is past. Just crack this motherfucker open like a Kinder egg.
Yeah, or just blow it up. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, just leave it buried in the goddamn sand, which was clearly the intent.
Yeah. So they
come in here with guns. What the fuck do you think this is?
Yeah. So most of this movie is them finding another route and going, "I think this is the way out."
Yeah.
And then it's not. The funniest being when he finds a secret sealed door that needs to, like, you have to, like, trigger it to open. And he's like, "I think this is how that soldier got in." And I'm like, well, no, I don't. It's like in the movie Mortal Kombat when he's going through the cobwebs.
Yeah, and he's like, I think Katana went this way.
Yeah,
like
and that's
clearly
the joke.
didn't, and that's the gag. Yeah.
Yeah, in this it's serious. The door is covered with screaming skulls, and they're like, "Yeah, this is the way out. I'm sure of it."
Sure of it, yeah. Just a bunch of carved faces frozen for thousands of years in a scream of agony.
It's so dumb.
This is the way out. I don't think it is.
I really don't think it is. But they go through that, and then they get to the burial chamber. They have to solve a star puzzle. The dad gets murdered. He gets a fist.
The dad
through him.
gets Kano'd. Now that you brought Mortal Kombat up, yeah, they foist some real quick gobbledygook on us about Anubis weighing the hearts against Isis. I think I forget. But he has to weigh people's hearts to determine if they're worthy, and if they're worthy, the gates to heaven will open and they will pass through. And there's some real sweaty exposition about how Anubis has been locked in here, and he's been trying to find a worthy heart so he can go to heaven and join his father, Osiris.
Right.
And that's like Anubis's supposed to be Anubis's motivation, except he kills like 5 people without even attempting to take their hearts and weigh them.
Yeah. And Anubis isn't like it's a monster.
He's just a monster. Yeah, he's just a big jackal man.
Yeah. He doesn't
I thought Anubis was a god? Like,
yeah.
Why is he behaving like a bear?
It's another thing I looked up. Anubis was actually also traditionally very good to people. Like, that's a part of Anubis' thing.
Not in this movie.
Yeah.
Not in this racist-ass movie. They were just like, he's scary looking. Let's make him a monster. I'm like, I don't think he's a monster.
They didn't even scan his Wikipedia page.
Yeah, that's
like,
all
that's
you
what
had
it
to
is.
do, guys.
Yeah. Also, this was the point where they do like a puzzle at the end, a really half-assed one, and it was like a reminder of like, oh, this could have been the movie. Imagine a treasure hunting booby trap puzzle movie
that was found footage. Yeah, and that was
like, fuck, that would have been great.
I mentioned earlier the traps are the scariest part, like the spike pit, and like the stupid cats could have just been rats or whatever that are coming out and started eating her. They're in a hallway that starts filling with sand. That's terrifying.
Yeah, you could still have Anubis at the end or something, but like a found footage where it was mostly like a Uncharted, essentially, where you're just like doing a series of traps and puzzles, that would have been really fucking sweet.
Yeah, and if you're going to have Anubis at the end, it seems like Anubis would be more like the Grail Knight at the end of Last Crusade.
Yeah, do something interesting.
Yeah, and not a snarling monster, because...
Yeah, definitely don't show him in the light. When you can't afford to make him look good.
Right, definitely don't do that.
He looks like what you assume is under General Grievous. Like he just looks like a weird dog person that's like scratchy face.
He looks like a CGI werewolf in a car commercial. Like that's the level of quality of the effect.
Yes. He is a 1999, like he is the Scorpion King type of CGI.
Right, he looks about on the same level as the Scorpion King at the end of The Mummy Returns.
He looks like he could be part of Anubis's army in the Scorpion King. And so she solved this puzzle, and they do another dumb thing where she climbs out.
This is this I was screaming at my television during this part.
She climbs out, and then it gets dragged back in by Anubis. And it's like, okay, I mean, I really just want this movie to end. But I guess we're going to do this. Anubis, like, ties her up. There's this whole sequence with Anubis that's just not scary or compelling, where he's just, like, waiting to kill her, even though he
puts his finger claws, even though he straight up KO'd her dad to get his heart.
Yeah.
He, like, just kind of slides his finger claws into her, like Molaram in Temple of Doom, and then just waits there, like he's waiting.
Yep. Like he's waiting to get attacked by cats.
Yeah.
The cats show up and attack him for reasons unclear.
Well, they briefly breeze through some more gobbledygook about how the Sphinx cats are there to keep Anubis in the tomb. Like the exposition of the film, the story of the film is that Osiris knew Anubis was bad and built this tomb as a prison for him on Earth to keep him on Earth forever. I don't know why.
I don't know why.
They don't say why, but so yeah, the cats are meant to like keep him locked inside. But the part that I was screaming about is that before that, you know, Dad gets KO'd. We see him get his heart weighed. He doesn't pass judgment, so he gets melted. Then she and the cameraman, who are the last two characters, do like a suspenseful climactic scene climbing up the shaft to get outside, and there's this whole thing where Anubis comes up after them, and the cameraman like sacrifices himself so she can get out. She gets to the top, and then Anubis just drags her back down to do this sequence, and then right after that they do the same sequence of her climbing up the shaft with Anubis climbing after her. It's like, we did this twice. You did the same climax twice.
It feels like in the screenwriting or reshoots or something, someone was like, no, we want more, and they're like, I don't want to write a whole other thing, so I'm just gonna loop this sequence.
Right, it's maddening. It's like doing a climactic car chase, stopping to have like a brief fist fight with the villain, and then doing the same climactic car chase.
Yeah,
it's very strange.
Yeah, it's Indiana Jones running from the boulder, then like somehow getting back inside so he can run from the boulder again.
Right. Like Belloc takes the idol and then he immediately has to go back inside and run from the boulder again. But it's like the same shots.
I was about to say, not a different boulder, the same boulder in the same hallway.
Yeah.
It's the same sequence.
Yeah.
Twice. Mm-hmm. And again, the same location and characters. It is awful. It's an awful film.
It is a baffling decision.
And so they do so they've already done the she's getting out. Oh, fake out, she's not. And then they do it again at the end. Mm-hmm. She gets out, and then she's lying there, and an Egyptian kid walks up, and I thought, oh, here's a chance for like a twist. Maybe Anubis shows up, and like the kid is like friends with Anubis or something. Like, I'm not saying that's a good idea, but it's a chance for something.
Well, they start to do it because the kid picks up the expensive camera instead of helping her. It's
exactly.
Like, well, no, I'm going to take this camera and feed my family for 3 years.
Right. I thought, oh, maybe they'll do something interesting. And then Anubis pops up behind him and kills the child. Smash cut to new metal.
Yep.
The credits.
New metal credits. About, at I think, minute 82. Like, this movie is barely over an hour long.
It is.
They couldn't they could barely make this a full movie.
No. And it's, what's incredible about that is that going all the way back to the core premise, a found footage film in a pyramid with booby traps and like curses is a great idea.
It's a fantastic idea.
This, if there was ever a movie that someone needs to remake, it's this one.
I would just, make a different one.
Or just make a different movie.
Just take that idea of like ancient spooky trap temple with some supernatural shit going on inside. Make that found footage. That is a great idea.
Yeah, I guarantee no one's going to accuse you of ripping off the pyramid.
God, no.
This movie it really is one of the most cynically made, half-assed, cheap, not necessarily money cheap, found footage horror that ever existed. It's
at least it's one of the rare instances where it received it got the reception that it deserved.
Yeah, nobody would disagree with us. Yeah. Like, nobody's going to argue with us. It's Rotten Tomatoes, it's box office, everything across the board.
Yeah, it's critic ratings, it's audience ratings. It bombed like a shard from an exploding planet, like a shard from Krypton. Right. So badly that it didn't even get released on time when it was supposed to, and it didn't even come out on video in most markets.
Right, like, say what you want about, like, Paranormal Activity. I get that it's a cheap film. I'm not a big fan of those, but I watched them, and they clearly scratched an itch by making those films.
Well, at the bare minimum, they stick to their premise.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Even the one that's not, because there's one, The Chosen Ones or whatever. The
Chosen Ones, yeah.
Yeah, that's actually not a bad movie from what I remember. They still stick to the found footage premise. They're just running around with the camera. Mm-hmm. And I don't think they did that again, mainly because they're like, well, what makes us special is
it's security. It's a haunted house, yeah.
Yeah, and it's those security shots.
Yeah, it's Paranormal Activity is more of a theme park ride than a movie.
Yeah. And honestly, some of them have stuff in it that I was like, oh, that's clever.
That third one is not bad.
Yeah, they also actually stick to a lore that they have.
It's goofy, but yeah.
Yes, by the last one, they explain what's happening. They don't mystery box it. By the end, you're like, okay, so I know why all of this happened.
Well, but yeah, I don't need that. Like, I was perfectly... Like, part of what made the Paranormal Activity movies spooky was the unknowable nature of the entity. But anyway, we're
what this is about is that the bar is so low,
right? Like,
that I'm congratulating it for having a plot.
It's not like a quality franchise. But it's my God, it's even them doing like the bare minimum is way better than whatever this piece of shit was.
Because they also could have done the Paranormal Activities could have had every movie unrelated and just the same thing over and over again. They felt the point is that they felt like they had to make an effort to actually make. Because again, it's so easy to just make a Paranormal Activity lazy.
Yeah.
That they were like, we're actually going to go the extra mile and try to make it interesting too. This is.
Yeah, they want to keep people coming back.
Yeah, and again, it's not good horror.
No, it's not like utterly creatively bankrupt. Because even though Paranormal Activities are very cynical films themselves, they at least have respect enough for the audience to be like, okay, we have to come up with something to give the audience a reason to come see another one of these.
Exactly. Whereas this one, surprisingly, with all the elements they have in it, is somehow more lazy and cynical than a movie like Paranormal Activity or any of the found footage. You know,
this is $1 million premise. Like, this is a really good premise.
But it really is.
God, how they cats like
cats, and again, cats that didn't actually exist. All right, so here's a depressing thing. Budget $6.5 million.
Oh, that's pretty close.
Yep. It technically made its money back. $16.9 million. It made it, which is not good.
That is a single weekend. Good. That is a single. Yes. That is a single lukewarm weekend for a horror movie.
Yes. Internationally,
Oof.
So it made
I don't even know what the number is, and I'm wincing.
It's all right. So it was released in December. First of all,
yeah. What are you doing?
December. It earned only.
I mean, they knew it was a piece of shit. That's why it came out in December.
Yeah, it made 1.3 million in the U.S. Investors at the time had expected it, apparently, to make 20 million domestically, which is hilarious.
That's not even
ultimately.
That's not even a pie in the sky number for a horror movie like this.
Yeah,
like a decently budgeted horror movie with like a major studio behind it. Like 20 million for an entire run is not like shooting for the stars.
Yeah. It ultimately made 2.8 million in the U.S. And then internationally, it made 14 million. And that's a release in 18 markets.
I was going to say that's the only reason it made that much is because they released it in a bunch of different markets where word of mouth couldn't cross over.
Yeah,
like
this is
it had exactly one weekend in all of those markets.
Yeah.
The people came out of that theater and were like, do not see this movie.
It is.
It got what it deserved. I don't like celebrating when movies bomb, but this one deserves to bomb.
But this is like if someone is trying their hardest and fail, I'm not going to celebrate that unless the person is a bad person.
That's true. That's true. I'm sure this guy didn't want to make a bad movie.
Well, I was about to say, I don't believe that about this. It doesn't feel like they tried their hardest.
That's true. Like, we did talk about like all the shit. This is basic stuff that this movie is doing wrong.
Again, the movie is a found footage, and then within 5 minutes drops that premise randomly.
And it continues to do that with several. It'll do it within the same scene. It'll cut back and forth. Like it'll just break format and then go back to the format and then break it in the same scenes. It's wild.
I was desperately looking for behind the scenes stuff for this, and there's none
much
to be found.
I think people as soon as this fucking just drove into the earth like the fucking drill ship from the core.
Yes, but I desperately want to know.
I know. I need like a 6-episode miniseries about the making of this film. I need a huge book.
Yes.
A coffee table book, a tome about the making of the pyramid. I need to know every detail.
Yeah, I need interviews. I need people to I want to know what went wrong, because either one of two things happen, which is that there's a director who had like some weird vision that was passionate about it, and this is their vision, and their vision was bad. Or, and this is more likely, no one involved with this movie believed in it, and they just shat it out. That's what that's the thing, is that this isn't like an artistic film this isn't a big swing that misses. This is a movie that clearly feels lazy at every given time. It feels like it was a cynical attempt to cash in on found footage, and I'm glad it didn't do that.
Yeah. No.
I think it's okay to be happy that a movie, because had this made, $1 billion, that would be awful. That's a bad thing that would happen, in my opinion. That's someone turning in a half-assed and cynical project and being rewarded for it.
And not only rewarded for it, but like setting the curve for the class.
Yes,
because
exactly.
This movie would have gotten like a dozen imitators.
Yes, it's one of those thresholds that I'm glad, because with the Paranormal Activity movies, there's a level, and I think some people out there feel this way, where they're like, how is that? God, audiences are so dumb. How is that popular? You know what I mean?
Well, they're fun
to watch. The answer is it's clearly scratching an itch. This gives me that faith where it's like, people won't watch anything.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It goes for all the cheapest ways to appeal to audiences, and audiences around the world said, absolutely not. And that's the system working.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we've said enough about the pyramid.
I think so. It's a fascinating reminder that there's justice in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're interested in bad movies on like an academic level, watch it. Anyone else? You're all set.
You're just going to be disappointed
Yeah.
if you're going and expecting like the kind of fun you get from a Paranormal Activity. You're going to be really bummed when this is over.
I can't stress it enough. If you're expecting it's so bad, it's good, you're not going to get that either.
Nope.
Yeah. So thank you, Burrito Mouth.
Yeah.
No, honestly, I mean, it's
a good discussion. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I'm glad I saw it for the sake of this podcast.
I was excited to do the episode. I was not excited.
Me too.
I had seen the movie once before. I was not excited about rewatching the movie, but doing the episode was. I'm glad we did it.
I was also excited about rewatching the movie because I didn't remember that it was this bad, and I again fascinated by it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, thank you, Burrito Mouth. This was via our Patreon, patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. If you go on there, there's a bunch of tiers for $5 a month. Just $5 a month.
Mm-hmm.
You can get access to so many things. We have exclusive podcasts on there. Tom and Jeff Watch Batman, Fox Mulder is a Maniac, Star Trek The Next Futurama, and Spiel Boys. Spiel Boys and Star Trek The Next Futurama are one a month, while the others are weekly and bi-weekly. So it's a lot of content on there. We share some of those with our fellows at Small Beans as well. But the point is, $5 a month, you get all that. For $10, you get to watch movies with us every Friday night. We just watch the VHS movies. It's a lot of fun. A bunch of us get together, we talk over the movies, and we enjoy them.
Yeah.
And then we have other tiers past that. But yeah, check that out if you haven't already.
We also have a store. Head over to gamefullyunemployed.com where you can find a link to our Teespring store, which has all kinds of cool original artwork and designs for all of our shows, and also just fun designs. So
right.
You can get that shit slapped on T-shirts and mugs and stickers and posters and whatever the F you want. So check that out.
And happy after Halloween, because this is coming out after Halloween.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, happy post spoopy depression season.
Yeah, I mean, would you want this to be around Halloween? The pyramid?
Nah.
You want this to be our Halloween movie? Yeah, no one wants that.
No, nobody wants that.